Hello, good afternoon. Okay. ครับขอบคุณครับ all right. Last time it was introduction. So today we're going to talk about. Sorry. So today, let me share my screen. Okay. So today I'm going to teach you how to calculate what we call the average informations of a source. So when we talk about communications, okay, when we talk about communications, we have source, we have destinations. See these pictures. Okay, we have the source, we have the destinations, we have the channel. Okay, and the objective of all the techniques, all the technologies for communications are for we're trying to send what we call informations, okay, from the source to destination through the channel. And we're going to have noises that's going to degrade our signal or the informations. Another thing is that the channel here, the bandwidth, is a limited resource. What I mean is that if you want to increase the bandwidth, you have to pay. Okay, there's a cost of increasing the bandwidth. So we have limited bandwidth. We have a lot of information trying to send through that channel to the destinations. Okay, and so last time we start talking about informations, and we come up with a word called self-informations here. Self-informations. And from self-informations, let me use my whiteboard here. So for example, if we have a source, and this source is discrete, we assume that it's discrete, memoryless. Source. Or we call the DMS source. Discrete memoryless source, the meaning is that the signal, the symbol are discrete, not continuous. Okay, not continuous. And the source memoryless, meaning that the outcome of the source, if you think of, for example, if a source is a keyboard, for example, if source is a keyboard, so the keyboard generate alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G to Z. For example, if you have 26 symbol, okay, and we're going to send this symbol through the channel. Okay, if the source is memoryless, meaning that the transmission of one symbol have nothing to do with the transmission of the previous symbol. There's no memory. Okay. If you have any questions, you could ask. Okay. So the memoryless meaning that you can say it's like independent. Okay, in that term, meaning the current trial have nothing to do with the past or the future's trial. There's no effect. The probability of happening does not affect by previous trial. Okay, or the current symbol that we're going to send have nothing to do with the previous symbol or the future symbol. That's called the memoryless source. So if we assume that the source is discrete memoryless source, for example, if we have a die, if a die is a source, that means the generating 6 symbol, right? 6 symbol. If a keyboard is a source, assume that we only have 26 alphabet on that keyboard. We're going to have 26 symbol for that source. Okay, so let's assume we have 6 symbol. Let's say x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, and each symbol or sometimes they call alphabet or symbol. That each symbol has probabilities. This is big X. So P of X. Okay. Each symbol would have probabilities. For example, if the source is a die, okay, or I think they call a die, or a singular for dice, right? Then the probabilities of each symbol could be 1/6. Okay, that's x5, x6. Or for the fair die, if the dice is not fair, it's not a fair die, you could have different probability for each symbol. If the source is a keyboard with 26 alphabet, okay, for example, each alphabet will have probabilities. What mean by probability of each alphabet? Like if you're typing something, maybe you could find probability of each alphabet by look into textbook, newspaper, magazine, and you count each of alphabet, how many A, how many B, how many C, D, and E, and F out of the total, like 10,000 alphabet, 100,000 alphabet, and you count how many A, how many B. So you could find probability of each alphabet. So you probably going to find that probability for the vowel A, I, O, U are higher, have higher probability than some alphabet like X, like Q. Okay. So each alphabet would have probabilities, and when we have probability for each alphabet then each alphabet would have self-information, right? For example, if so for example, if x1 has probability of px1 and x2 have probability of px2 and x3 have probability of px3, x4, and all the probability need to add up to 1, okay? Add up to 1. And then you could find the self-information for each alphabet. Oh, I have a little problem with my pen. So self-informations I, okay, would equal to, we use the log, and we would like to use, actually it could be any log, but we would like to use the log 2 because we're going to have the unit of bits. So self-information would equal to log 2 of 1 over px1 and 1 over px2, 1 over px3, px4, px5, px6. Okay. So this is called the self-informations here. That's called the self-informations. So the average information for the source, the average information for the source, or the mean information for the source, or expected, let's say expected information for the source. Okay. Would equal to, if you know how to calculate expectation, right? You just multiply the self-informations with probability, and then you add everything up. So we would have px1 multiplied by log 2 of 1 over px1 plus px2 multiplied by log 2 of 1 over px2 plus px3, okay, and then all the way to px6 multiplied by log 2 of px2. Okay. And the average informations for this source, this is called the average information for this source, is expected value here, is also called the entropy, okay? And use the symbol h of x and call entropy. This is different entropy from thermodynamics, if you studied thermodynamics before. So the entropy here is the average information for a source. So if I give you a die, a fair die, okay, and I ask you to find entropy for that, for the average information for the fair die. I think we have a little bit of delay. Okay. It would equal to the probability of each symbol, each phase is 1/6, multiply by log 2 of 1 over 1/6, right? Plus the same thing. For the second symbol, you also have 1/6. And when you have 6 of them, you add them up, you have 6 log 2 of 1 over 1/6. And the unit of entropy, or the unit of average informations, when we use log of 2, is going to be bits per symbol. So this is a unit of the entropy, or the average information, for a source. Okay, so for this fair die, this also 6 log 2 of 1 over 6, or when the 6 come from, because I have fair dies, right? So each of the phase, each of the symbol 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have the same probability of 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6. So I have 1/6 multiplied by log 2 of 1 over 1/6, and I have it six term of 1/6 that multiplied by log 2 of 1/6. Oh, it's not 6. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's 1. And when you add them up, 1/6 6 times, you have 1. Okay, thank you. So you have 1 over 1/6, or you have log 2 of 6. Is that okay? And what is log 2 of 6? Get my calculator here. Okay. Log 2 6. See my calculator. Log 2.58. Bits per symbol. No, let's see. So the informations that contain in each of the outcome of the die, on average, of a fair die, average is 2.585 bits per symbol. Okay. Let me ask you now. If we have 6 alphabets, and we want to send, just like keyboard, okay, every time we type, we got one outcome. It's like we roll a die and we got an outcome, and we want to send this information from this source to the destinations. if we want to send the information using binary technologies, okay, but we're sending through the digital network, we have to code them, right? We have to do what we call coding. We have to give the binary code to each of the alphabet. So if we have 6 alphabet, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6. If this symbol of a die, so x1 may be 1, x2 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How would you give the binary code to each of the symbol? There's many ways, right? There's 1,000 million ways to do that. How would you do it? How would you do it? Why don't you just make up a code for me for this 6 symbol binary code? What you want for x1? How would you give binary code for each of this alphabet or symbol? There's probably no right or wrong. It probably is just a good one or a better one. Can I give x1 like 0? Okay. x2 I give it a 1. If I do that, then what's x3? Then so 1 bit code would be too short, right? I may need to give a longer code for each of the alphabet. If I think the common way is to give each symbol a fixed length code, meaning each code have the same length, like ASCII code, right? Each alphabet got 8 bits long, right? You know what the ASCII code is? Okay. Let me ask you questions then. Let me ask you questions. If I want to give each of the symbol the binary code with the same length, same number of bits, how many bits? What the I need at least 3 bits, right? Why? Because 3 bits, that's the total of 2 to the power of 3, which is 8 combinations, right? X possibility of coding. So I could take 6 of that and give it to my symbol. Maybe like that. Okay, so I use 6 of it. So at least 3 bit. right? Because 3-bit, I have 8 possible code, and that's called fixed length code, because every symbol got the same length code. And if we use this type of coding, okay, when we sending this symbol or this binary code through the channel, so on the average, we're sending 3 bits per symbol. Am I correct? Because every symbol got 3 bits. So if I use this this code, on the average, I would send 3 bits per symbol. And you could see that the bit that I'm sending actually exceed the informations, okay, average informations. So meaning that within the message or the bit that I'm sending, some part is informations, some part is what we call the redundancy, what is exceed the information. Okay. And when we talk about source coding, source coding is study the way the algorithm that how we're going to generate the code with the least bits, okay, so that we could send the least bits through the channel, okay. And we know that the best we could do on the average, we could only send 2.585 bits per symbol. We cannot do better than that. If on the average we're sending less than that, meaning we losing some information, because on the average we have 2.585 bits per symbol for a fair dot. And the source coding here, sometimes we call compressions. You have any questions? So to this point, what I expect you to be able to do, and you probably have to do in the exam. I'm telling you, exam problem again. You should be able to find entropy or average information of a source. Any questions? Okay. All right. Now, when we talk about coding, actually, I sent you 2 reference. We'll come back to this information. I sent you 2 reference. One is for source coding, another one is for array control coding. Okay. And in the first one, the source coding one, there's a part, a page, what page is this? Audit. Page number 254. Okay. you're going to see a table here. Table. So I'm going to use this table to explain you about the classification of codes. Okay. I take a snapshot of this. All right. Okay. So now let's assume that we have a source with 4 symbols, x1, x2, x3, x4. We have a source with 4 symbols, and we would like to give a code for each symbol. Yeah. There are many ways to do that. Okay, and what we want to talk about is that the definition of each coding here, the property of the coding. First, we call it the fixed length code. Fixed length code. Hold on. Let me use. I would like to use. To use the text so I could show you the definitions. So the fixed length code here, the code that called fixed length code is one whose code word length is fixed. Code 1 and code 2 on the table are fixed length code. That's code 1, code 2. Any questions for that? Because each of the code has the same length, 2 bits, right? So code 1 and code 2 are fixed length code. Now, read definition number 2, variable length code. A variable length code is one whose code word length is not fixed. Okay. If you look at code 1, code 2, code 3, code 4, 5, and 6, which one are variable length code, you think? That means each of the symbol or each of the alphabet, or not all alphabet has the same length. So you can say that code 3, code 4, code 5, code 6 are variable length code. One second. All right. Now, let's take a look at the third property of code. We call the distinct code. Distinct code here. A code is distinct if each code word is distinguishable from other code word. All code of table 10.1 except code 1 are distinct. Okay. So if you take a look, code 1 is code number 1, distinct code. Can you see it? It's code number one distinct code. No, because x1 and x2 got the same code, 0 and 0, right? You know what? Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me fix my thing here. Give me 1 minute. All right. Someone asked me, is code 3 considered distinct? Yes, code 3 distinct, right? Because you don't have the same code. 0, 1, 0, 0, and 1, 1. They are not the same. Okay. Let's look at code number 2. Distinct? Yes, right. 3 distinct. Code 4, is that distinct code? Yes. Code 5, is that distinct? 5, yes. 6, yes. Look at the distinct code. Okay. So all code of the table 10.1 except code 1. Except code 1 are distinct. Any questions ครับ on the distinct code for the code that has the property that's called distinct? Okay. Now let's look at the property called the prefix-free code. Prefix-free code. Okay, why don't you read that? A code in which no code word can be formed by adding code symbol to another code word is called a prefix-free code. Okay. Actually, the prefix-free code is we have some kind of delay again. All right. A prefix-free code meaning there's no code that going to be prefix of the other code. Okay. Boot code number 1 a prefix-free code? You think? Not sure if it has been uploaded somewhere, but I cannot find it. Oh, really? Google Classroom. Okay. So code one is code one a prefix-free code? You think you could just guess? Anyone would like to guess? Is that a prefix-free code? So let me tell you, this one is not a prefix-free code. Called x1 and x3. We could consider x1 is a prefix of x3 and x3 prefix of x1. Okay. So this is not a prefix-free code. So if a prefix-free, there's no code that is a prefix of the other code. Would code number 2 prefix-free code? Yes. Yes. So this one's not prefix-free. The third one is that prefix-free code. Code number 3. Code number 3, actually you could see that this 0, okay, for x1 is a prefix of x3. Okay, so this is not prefix-free. And 1 here become a prefix of code number 4. So this is not a prefix-free code, because some of the code is a prefix of the other one. Okay. All right, try again. Code number 4, is this a prefix-free code? Code 4. Yes. Okay, this is yes. Prefix-free. How about 5? No. That's not prefix-free, because 0 become prefix of other, and 0, 1 is also a prefix of code x3. Okay. How about 6? Is that a prefix-free code? 6. Yes or no? Actually, this is a prefix-free, okay? It's a prefix-free code, because there's no other code. Okay, so grasp, this is the solution. In prefix-free code, no code word is prefix of another. So code 2, 4, and 6 are prefix-free. So 2, 4, and 6 are prefix-free code. Okay. The important definitions, the most important property of a code that we would like to have is this one. It's number 5. Okay. Is uniquely decodable code. Uniquely decodable code. If I have to read it carefully. A distinct code, okay, so we know what distinct code is. A distinct code is uniquely decodable if the original source sequence can be reconstructed perfectly from the encode binary sequence. Okay. So basically, what it means is that when you use the uniquely decodable code to send the information, send your symbol. Okay. For example, I want to send x1, x2, x3. At the end, at the receiver, okay, or at the destinations, when the destination decode that bit, the destination should get x1, x2, and x3 only. So you cannot send a binary bit that could be decoded in many different ways. It has to be uniquely decodable. Okay. And that's what we want. And that means by uniquely decodable, you could decode that binary bit one way. Okay. Further read. Note that code 3 of table 10.1 is not uniquely decodable code. Well, before we go up, code 3, for example, binary sequence 1001 may respond. Okay, I'll explain that. I'll go back and explain that. Okay, but read this one. Read this one. A sufficient conditions to ensure that a code is uniquely decodable. Okay, is that no code word is a prefix of another. And then we'll take a look at that. There's a note here. A note that prefix-free code is not a necessary condition for uniquely decodable. So basically what this is saying is that if the code is prefix-free, the prefix-free code is a sufficient conditions for uniquely decodable code, but it's not a necessary condition for uniquely decodable code. And you understand what that means. Let me explain the definition of sufficient condition and necessary condition first. When you read math book, sometimes you see this, or textbook. You're going to see these two terms, and they have different meaning. And you have to be very careful for this. Okay. Sufficient condition mean, if you don't understand, you ask. For example, if A is a sufficient conditions for if event A, for example, if event A is a sufficient conditions for event B, That mean, okay, if I have A, if A happen, B going to happen. That's B going to happen. But if you see B, it doesn't mean that you're going to see A. You understand what I mean? Sufficient conditions for this one. If A happen, you're going to get B. Okay. But if you see B, it doesn't mean that you already have A. That's called A is sufficient conditions for B. Any questions? For necessary conditions, if A is a necessary conditions for B, this mean that uh, if we don't have A, we are not going to have B. If we don't have A, we're not going to have B because A is necessary condition for B. That means if we see B happen, you are sure that A happen because A is necessary condition for B. But if A happen, it doesn't mean that you're going to have B because it's only a necessary conditions, but it's not a sufficient condition. Any questions on that? Let me give you an example. So I say that if I say that homework submissions is a necessary conditions to get A in the class. If I say that, what that means is that if you want to get A, you have to submit homework. Okay. But it doesn't mean that if you submit homework, you're gonna get A because homework submissions only the necessary condition, but not a sufficient conditions. Okay. So if I say again that 90% on exam is a sufficient conditions to get A. If I say that, that means that so this is separate saying, okay. But if I say 90% on the exam is sufficient to get A, meaning that if you get 90% on the exam, you're gonna get A for sure. But it doesn't mean that the student that get A need to get 90% on the exam. You understand that? So if you want it to go back and forward both way, you have to say that A is sufficient conditions and necessary conditions for B. Then if we say A is a sufficient condition and necessary condition for B to happen, that means if you see A, you're going to see B. And if you see B happen, that means A happen. Any questions about the term sufficient conditions and necessary conditions? Yes or no? Okay. So if you understand that, then we go back to read the definitions of uniquely decodable again. Okay. So it say here, okay, let's start here. Insufficient conditions to ensure that the code is uniquely decodable is that no code is a prefix free of another. So if that code is a prefix free, okay, you can be certain that that code is also uniquely decodable. Okay. But if you see a uniquely decodable code, it doesn't mean that that code has to be prefix free. Okay, that's what sufficient conditions say. So a prefix free conditions is not necessary. It's not necessary condition for uniquely decodable. Okay, ครับ now we're going to take a look at the code that are uniquely decodable. First, let's take a look at the prefix free code, because if it's prefix free, you could conclude right away. Okay, if a code is a prefix free code, you can conclude right away that that code is also a uniquely decodable code. So a uniquely decodable code, let's see, the prefix free, the second one is prefix free, the fourth one is prefix free, and number 6 is prefix free. So 2, 4, and 6 are uniquely decodable. Okay, for sure. Okay, but now okay, this is not prefix free, okay, but it's uniquely decodable. Why? Why is uniquely decodable? Okay, for example, if I want to send x1, x2, x3, so it's like type x1, x2, x3. That means the binary code that's going to be sent is 0 for x1, 0, 1, 0, 1 for x2, and then for x3, I'm going to send 0, 1, 1. Okay. So when I send that binary code through the channel to the destinations, at the destinations, I would look at the code, and when I see 0, I cannot decode, okay, because I don't know what that is. I have to wait for the second bit. And when I see the second bit is 0, then I could be sure that the first bit is x1, okay, because every code for code number 5 starts with 0, but only one 0. So when I see another 0, it means it's the start of a new code. So I know, so when I receive the first bit, which is 0, I cannot decode because I'm not sure what's coming, what follow, right? But when I see the second bit that is 0, I could be sure that the first bit is x1. And when I get the second bit 0, I'm not sure too. I'm not sure. I have to wait for the third bit. And when the third bit I get 1, now I have 0, 1. I'm still not sure that going to be x2, it could also be x3 or x4. I have to wait again to see the fourth bit. And when I see the fourth bit become 0, then I'm sure that the second symbol must be x2. And then when I see 1, 1, then I see x3. So for code number 5, okay, even though it's not a prefix-free code, but it could be decoded unique. It's a uniquely decodable code. Okay, so for a uniquely decodable code, a prefix-free code is a sufficient condition for uniquely decodable code, but it's not a necessary condition. Yeah. Any questions, Carl? Any questions? And the code that are not uniquely decodable mean that when you generate the code and you send through the channel to the destination, at the destination could decode more than one way, so it's not uniquely decodable. For example, let's choose like code number 3. Okay, if I use code number 3, then I want to send x1, x2, x3. Okay, I'm going to send 0 for x1, send 1 for x2, send 0, 0 for x3. Okay, and this one goes through the channel and reach the destination. And when the destination look at this code, you see 0. Okay, you see 0. Don't know what that is. Wait for the second bit 0, 1. So there's no 0, 1, so that 0 must be x1, right? And then we see a 1. Not sure, we wait for this one, and 1, 0. There's no 1, 0. So this one must be x2. And then when I reach the third 0, we're not sure is that x1 to x1 or x3. Okay. So when we decode, when we received 0, 1, 0, 0 at the destination, it's not sure that it's going to be x1, x2, x1, x1, or it's going to be x1, x2, x3. So that means it's not uniquely decodable. Okay, I'm going to give you a break. So this is 15:07. So 10 minutes. Say 15:17 then. Come back. Okay, ครับ break till ฮัลโหล Okay, ครับ let's continue ครับ Okay, now you know what a uniquely decodable code is. Now let's look at property number 6. It's called instantaneous code. So a uniquely definition, a uniquely decodable code is called instantaneous code if the end of any code word is recognizable without examining subsequent code symbol. So what that is that if you have uniquely decodable code that you can decode without have to look at let me say that again. If you get the code word, you could instantaneously recognize what it is without having to wait for the next bit. Okay. So the condition to be instantaneous code is that it needs to be prefix free. So prefix free code is a sufficient condition for uniquely decodable. Okay. And when it's prefix free, we can also call that code instantaneous code. So if you look at code number 2, code number 4, and code number 6, this is a prefix free, right? And they are also uniquely decodable. And you can also say they are instantaneous. So prefix free code is the same as instantaneous code. That means, okay, so let's look at, for example, code number 6. If I receive 1, okay, if I receive a 1 at the receiver, I could immediately decode that as x1. Okay. If I receive 0, 1, I could immediately decode that x2 without have to wait for the next bit. For example, if I use code number 6, so if I'm sending x1, x2, x3, I would send 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay. So when that goes to the receiver, at the receiver, when the receiver see the first bit, which is 1, I look at the table, I see 1, I could translate that right away, so I know that x1. So I wait for second bit 0, nothing on the table, and then I wait for the third bit, I have 0, 1, and 0, 1 is on the table, I can immediately decode as x2 without have to wait for the next bit. Okay. Unlike when we doing code number 5, remember when we doing code number 5, that uniquely decodable code. But code number 5 is not prefix free because you see this 0 is a prefix of 0, 1, it's a prefix of 0, 1, 1, and 0, 1, 1, 1. It's not prefix free, but code number 5 is still uniquely decodable. But the problem is that when we decode code number 5, for example, when I receive a 0, I cannot immediately decode as x1. I have to wait for the next bit. Okay. And if next bit is 1, and I got 0, 1, I still cannot decode it right away as x2. I have to wait for the next bit. Until you get the next 0, then you know that the bits in front, we could decode the bit in front, right? For example, this one, x1, x2, x3, I got 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. When I get the first bit 0 at the receiver, I cannot be sure is that x1. I have to wait until I see the second bit. And when I see the second bit as 0, then I know that the first bit is x1. Okay, so this is not instantaneous code. Number 5 is a uniquely decodable but not instantaneous, and it's not instantaneous because it's not prefix free. Any questions, Cap? So instantaneous code and prefix free code, they are the same. So sometimes for this reason, prefix free code are sometimes called instantaneous code. We have some delay again. Whoops, not delay. The screen is freezing. Okay, got it. So you didn't see my. Let me say that again because the screen was freeze. So code number 5, okay, is a uniquely decodable code, but it's not prefix free. And because it's not prefix free, when we decode, it's not instantaneous because we have to wait, okay, because after we get a code word, for example, we get 0, that should be an x1, but we cannot be sure that 0 is x1, not until we wait for the next bit. And if the next bit is 1, we got 0, 1. We still cannot decode as x2 because it's not sure that the next bit could be another one, and it cannot decode right away. Like when I send x1, x2, x3, and we send that for code number 5. So you're going to see that every time we get a complete code word, we still need to wait for the next bit to see if a 0 or a 1. If a 0, then we could decode the front bit. If it's not 0, then we have to wait again. Okay,ครับ. All right, so to this point, let me summarize for you. So you now know how to calculate the average informations, or we call the entropy of a source. Yes. And now you know some property of the binary code. Okay. We still have number 7. Let's look at definition number 7. Optimal code. And a code is said to be optimal if it is instantaneous and has minimum average length for a given source with a given probability assigned for the source symbol. So an optimal code is a code that has minimum average length. Basically, if given us a set, given us a source, within a source we have a set of symbols, right? If we could generate code words that have minimum average length, we would call that a optimal code. How do we know that it's already minimum? one thing, our average informations per symbol, average code length per symbol could not be lower than average information per symbol. And let's take a look at this one. This is also an important rules here. Let X, this is called graph inequality. Okay. Let X be a DMS. This is stand for discrete memoryless source. So it's a source that it's memoryless. It's like independent. Okay. Memoryless mean each outcome of that source is independent. So for example, if we have X is a DMS source and have alphabet X1 until XM. So we have M alphabet. Okay, assume that the length of the assigned binary code word corresponding to Xi is Ni. So Ni is the length of code word Xi. Okay. A necessary and sufficient condition. So it's both necessary and sufficient for existence of instantaneous binary code is that so what it says is that we could check. So the graph inequality here going to tell us, okay, going to assure us if we could find instantaneous code when we have given the length of each code word. Okay, each code word. But it does not show how to obtain that code word. Okay, let me explain. So for example, let's take one of the code and find the graph inequality here. Let's see code number okay. Let's see code number 6. Okay. So code number 6, X1 has the length of 1 bit. Okay, X2 the length of 2 bit. X3 has the length of 3 bit. X4 has the length of 4 bits. Okay, and if we calculate graph inequality for that, look at this formula again. So this is the formula. The sum of 2 to the power of minus ni is the length of word xi. Okay, so for code number 6, we have 4 symbols. Okay, 4 symbols. So m here equal to 4, right? Because x1, x2, x3, x4. And so we're going to sum 2 to the power of minus the length of code I. For example, if code I is 1, so it's the length of code 1 1, right? Remember x1, the length of x1 is 1 plus the length of our x2 2 plus, okay, and if we calculate this is 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/16, and we got this 16, and we have 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, that's 12, 16, 12, 14, 15. So that's 15 divided by 16. And that less than 1. That's less than 1. You see? So we're finding the sum of 2 to the power of negative, the length of each code word, and we sum them up and we have less than 1. That means that if we create a set of code with length 1, length 2, length 3, length 4, okay, for the full alphabet, for symbol here, if we have code length 1 and another one 2 and 3 and 4, that means, and this is less than 1, that means we could find instantaneous code for this set of the length. Okay, so the Kraft inequality just tells us that the existence of the instantaneous code, if we use this set of length to create a code, one symbol got length 1, one symbol got length 2, got length 3, got length 4. But the Kraft inequality doesn't tell us how to generate that code. Okay, it just tells us that it's possible to have instantaneous code given that each of the code have the length 1, another one have 2 and 3 and 4. That's it. Any questions? So K is true or false? Yes, K is true or false. If K is less than 1, then it's possible, okay, to use the set of the length, to generate the code and get the instantaneous code. If K is false, it's just telling you that it's impossible to have instantaneous code with that set of length. For example, if I have 4 symbol, right, and I say, why don't we give x1 1 bit long, and we give x2 another 1 bit long, and x3 2 bit long, and x4 2 bit long. So we have x1 1 bit, x2 2 bit long, x3 x1 1 bit long, x2 1 bit long, x3 2 bit long, and x4 2 bit long. And if we do Kraft inequality for that, we're going to see that we have 2 to the minus 1 plus 2 to the minus 1 plus 2 to the minus 2 plus 2 to the minus 2. Okay, and we have 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. and we have 1.5, 1.5. So this is not less than 1. It's not less than 1. So that means it's impossible for us to find a set of code with 1 bit long for x1, 1 bit long for x2, 2 bit long for x3, and 2 bit long for x4, and to make that instantaneous code. It's just impossible. So Kraft inequality just say that you could just give up. There's no way to doing, no way of creating instantaneous code to have that kind of, to have that set of lengths. Okay. Okay, so Kraft inequality just tell us if it's possible to find the instantaneous code, to generate instantaneous code using that set of length for each code. Okay, it's useful, right? It's useful. Sometimes you can get a reward for telling people that something is not impossible to do. Okay, you don't have to invent anything. But if you could tell people that something that impossible to do is going to save a lot of effort for people, right? If you can, if like it's the scientists around the world trying to do something, and then you can come up with a proof that what they are trying to do is not possible. Well, that's very useful, right? So this is one thing. Okay, so you don't have to read everything on the reference, okay? You could just read the text at the point that I tell you to read. So at least page number, you could read page number 254, 255 for today. Actually, if, let me show you. You could read about the informations. We have 8 minutes, I show you. So we could finish. You don't have to read everything. Yes, we want to read them. So there's informations, right? So this called self-informations. So if we have discrete memory, the source, and we have alphabet x1 to xn. Okay, each of the alphabet would have information equal to log b of 1 over that, the probability of that symbol. And if we use b equal to 2, we're going to get the unit as bit symbol. So we would like to use log 2, okay? We would like to use log 2. And then you can see that, okay, this is nothing. If you want to calculate log 2 and you don't have, your calculator doesn't have log 2, you could use log 10, okay? For example, log 2 of A you can press log 10 of A divided by log 10 of 2, and you can get log 2 of A. That's nothing, just formula for log. And this is what we learned today. The average informations or entropy. So this is a formula. So this is what you should be able to calculate. The unit is bit per symbol. And you're going to see that the formula here, notice that it's not 1 over p, right? Because log of 1 over p is equal to minus log of px. So if you move px in front, up, you could put the minus in front, so you can see this formula is minus in front here. So it's the same formula that I give it to you, okay? But if you change from 1 over p to p, instead of plus in front, we have to put minus. So if we have x1, x2, x3, okay, so when we calculate the entropy here, I use 1/6 is probability, right? Time log 2 of 1 over 1/6. Or you could say minus 1/6 time log 2 of 6. Okay. So if you change from 1 over probability, no, 1/6, I'm sorry. Minus 1/6 log 2 of 1/6. Okay. So it's the same thing. Log 2 of 1 over 1/6 equal to minus log 2 of 1/6. So this is property of log. So log of A equal to minus log of 1 over A. So don't get confused about the formula here. So this is what we learned. If you want to read, let's just give the example of a source with two symbols. Source with two symbols. For example, a coin, head or tail. And for example, each of the symbol has the property of 1/2. If you want to find the average information for that coin, for the fair one, it's going to be minus 1/2 log 2 of 1/2 minus 1, which is 1 bit per symbol. The average information for each flip is 1 bit per symbol. And you're going to see that, for example, like a die. A fair die, we have each symbol or each outcome has the same probability, that is 1/6. If this die is not a fair die, and it's not a fair die, and each of the face, each of the symbol has different probability. For example, maybe one of the face would have higher than 1/6, one would have less. Okay. And if you calculate probabilities, if you calculate average informations, you're going to see that the average information for the die that is not fair is have less information than the fair die. Why? Because the fair die is the die that's it's the most difficult to guess, right? Because each of the outcome has the same probability. So with more uncertainty, you have more information. If you have, I'm sorry, let me say that again, I'm sorry. More uncertainty, you have more information. If it's very certain or more certain, you're going to have less information. Something that have very high probability or very certain, you have very small information. Just like I told you, if I tell you something that is 100% sure that's going to happen, what I'm telling you has no information at all. It means you don't need to know, you don't need to hear what I say. You already is 100%. It's not going to help you anything, no information. Like I'm telling you that tomorrow is going to be Friday, like that. Consider that zero information in my message. And if I send you that information through the channel, it's a waste of resource. I don't need to send at all. Okay. And the compressions, I saw the 50, give me 1 minute. Like, for example, like the video, if we want to compress video, like MP4, something like that, you're going to see that video is like sequence of frame, right? And maybe the first frame would be a guy standing like that. The second frame is the guy just raising his hand like that. So if we could send the bit for the first frame, and if we want to send bit for the second frame, even if we need to send everything, it's going to be a lot. If we could send the difference between the first frame and second frame, just the information that the difference is that his hand, one is down, another is up. You don't have to send the information for the whole frame, right? You just send the information for the difference. And what already know, what the same is not considered information. Okay. And if you could do that, you could make the files of the videos smaller. And that's kind of compressions. That's the concept of source coding or compressions, is that you're trying to get rid of the redundancy in the message. You want to send only the information. So in a message, you have a part that is information. And you have another part that's called redundancy. The compression algorithm is trying to get rid of this part. But the smallest you would do without losing information would be getting rid of that part. But I want to tell you that actually a lot of compression scheme is throwing away some information because they want to try to make it so small that they're willing to sacrifice the information, they throw away the information. And that means at the end, okay, you would have less quality data. Okay, for example, when we compress maybe MP3, we have the original song. When you compress the song with MP3, that MP3 throw away some of the information, not only throwing away redundancy, but throw away some of the information. So when you expand that MP3 and listen to it, you would have less quality of the music than the original. Okay, because and the trade-off, but this trade-off already been researched that the audience, the people that listen to the MP3 is okay with that less quality there. So, all right. So it's time. Any questions? So you need to be able to calculate entropy for a source today, and you need to understand the properties of binary code. For example, uniquely decodable, instantaneous code, prefix-free code. Okay, ครับ will you upload the lecture note and the PDF you use? Actually, the PDF I already uploaded. And you don't see it? The lecture note I could. Yeah. You don't see it? The classroom. Why not? Okay, let me check. Okay, the recording. The classroom. Check real quick. You're correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Probably I didn't post it. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll upload I'm going to upload two reference, one for the source coding, one for the error control coding, and the one that I show you, the PDF, is for the source coding, and I'm going to upload the video ครับ โอเคครับ See you ครับ
อาจารย์ครับ is there homework for
Yeah, I will assign you homework.
okay
Probably for the information here, for the entropy here. Yes. Right ครับ Thank you ครับ Thank you